Hi there. I'd like to take a quick break from building things for a moment to talk about a story that came out in the news the other day. This may become a recurring segment on this channel called My 2 Cents. That was terrible. We'll work on the name later, but first, let's take a listen. Little news story that came out the other day. The much anticipated UFO report from the Pentagon. Now, look, I'm a realist. I get it. I know no one expected it to be some sort of, grand reveal of like, yes, we do. There are flying saucers. They are aliens. And we have several craft. We've been reverse engineering them for years. Nobody thought that's what the report was going to say. Nobody. I get that. But I gotta say, 9 pages. It was as if the Pentagon turned to an intern and was like, Tommy, type up a few pages, give it some bullet points. Let's just hand that to Congress with a giant FU. It felt like the Pentagon was just like, oh, really? You want answers on UFOs? We'll have our intern get right on it. If you look at the report itself, it says that there's 144 cases that we've looked at over the past 2 or 3 years. We don't know what they are because of a lack of data, which seems to imply that this thing could be something totally ordinary, totally banal. Could be a seagull for all we know. We just don't have the data. If you know anything about the UFO subject, or you've watched any of the interviews from someone like Commander David Fravor, as well as the other pilot who was with him, they were both on 60 Minutes recently, they describe a craft that's able to go from 0 to 1,000,000 miles an hour in the blink of an eye. Pilots off the coast of Virginia are encountering these things on radar as well as visually every single day for the past several years. The point that I would really like to make is that no matter what these things are, if it's extraterrestrials, then it's game-changing on a global level. If they're man-made, well then holy crap, we're screwed. First of all, if they're man-made, then what in the world is Elon Musk doing with SpaceX? And if you say, maybe it's the Chinese that have made it, let me try to dispel that argument really fast. If the Chinese had technology like this, they would rule the world. That's first. Second of all, these sightings of craft like this have been going on for decades upon decades. Pilots in World War II on all sides, on the US, British, German, Soviet, everybody, they all reported seeing these flying balls of light that seemed to be intelligently controlled because they were pacing with the aircraft. At the time, they called them Foo Fighters. Thank you, of course, to David Grohl for naming his band that, and so now the name can never be taken seriously again. Way to go, Ace. These things have been around since at least the 1940s, but probably far earlier than that. So if the Chinese or the Russians made this thing, then that means that the Chinese and the Russians were building ridiculously advanced technologies 1,000 years ahead of where we are right now, back in the 1940s. So what are they just sitting on it for? If they're US made, well then, what the hell are we sitting on it for? These are not normal propulsion systems. These aren't rockets, these aren't jets, these aren't propellers. So if these technologies are man-made, well then you have to really go down the rabbit hole of conspiracy theory stuff, and you gotta talk about secret space programs, and if you get into that zone, then all of a sudden, you're just one step away from talking about lizard people and all the rest. It doesn't matter what they are, alien, man-made, some kind of interdimensional being, whatever it is, it's groundbreaking on a global level. And yet, despite that, the Pentagon sees fit to release a 9-page document. What is that? What is that? And if this whole thing is such a not a big deal, if this whole thing is just, it's no big deal, no, don't worry about it. If that's true, why can no one ever get any answers on it? Why is it that every president, from Bill Clinton, Jimmy Carter, all of them, they've all publicly stated that I tried to find out about UFOs. I said look, I'm the president of the United freaking States. Give me the answers. And then even they get stonewalled. So when you look at even ATIP, for example, it was a relatively small office. I mean, it was probably Elizondo and a few other guys in a single office somewhere buried in the Pentagon, and they had a budget of maybe a few $1 million. And sure, maybe a few $1 million is a lot of money to you and me, but it's, inside the Pentagon, it's nothing. They spend more than a few $1 million a year on paper clips. people treat Lou Elizondo like he's this giant expert, right? He was on Tucker Carlson last night, and he tried to act like the report was like some sort of big deal revelatory thing that, was really important. No, it wasn't. It was actually a remarkable example of how someone can write several pages of material without actually saying anything. My theory is that UFOs are, in fact, a very big deal. And something like ATIP, which Lou Elizondo was heading up, was just kind of like the cover, so that if there ever is any level of public inquiry into the thing, whether you've got a Harry Reid or nowadays a Marco Rubio or somebody who wants to ask a few questions, they can sort of like, oh, well, let's refer them to those, those jokers in ATIP. And so we can look like we at least have a program that's studying this thing, but we're only putting minimal resources into it. So in a way, Lou Elizondo knows less than anybody because, see, at least we know that we don't know anything. Yet Elizondo, he actually thinks that he knows something, which is worse.
You know nothing. In fact, you know less than nothing. If you even knew that you knew nothing, that'd be something, but you don't. Yes, sir.
His performance on Tucker Carlson's show the other day, he was kind of backpedaling and stuff because Tucker, to his credit, was actually trying to press him on things a little bit. Be like, well, wait a minute. If these aren't man-made, then what the hell else could they be? And then you watch Elizondo kind of squirming. Well, something about quantum physics and this miraculous universe we live in. And what? What does that mean? What, quantum physics? What the hell are you talking about? It was absolutely pathetic. It upset me, obviously. And is it just me, or are we getting a little bit tired of just this snail's pace level of information? It's like, dude, just declassify it. Don't give us this 9-page report. Because you know what? It brings to light a few other questions that maybe the people in the Pentagon would probably rather people didn't ask. Like, don't you guys work for us? Isn't it our tax dollars which you rob us blind of every single freaking year? Don't you work for us? It would seem as though these unidentified aerial phenomena, they are real. And if that's the case, that makes them extremely important to study. Like I said, a game-changing phenomenon on a global level. So either A, you're not putting any resources into solving the mystery, which could be really important, or B, you are putting the resources into solving the mystery, but you're just not telling anybody. And why? Because you're a dick. So that's my little rant for today about a particular news item, and we'll see you in the next video.